When our best fur friends leave our world, many of us are left wanting one last scritch, one last hug, one last walk together. One Last Network is a space for pet guardians to honor their pets in their senior years and to cope with the days leading up to and after their passing. Here's your host, Angela Schneider, founder of One Last Network and Big White Dog Photography in Spokane, Washington.
Welcome to One Last Network and the art of saving our sugar faces. Senior dogs are, and I'm not trying to be facetious or cheeky here, a vulnerable population in North American society. Family dogs may develop health problems that can be expensive to treat and require an investment of time to care for when life is busy. A family's life circumstances may change, having to move to a new place, a rental where pets are not allowed. There may be changes in behavior due to cognitive decline, and keeping the dog in the family may become challenging. Or cruelest of all the reasons, senior dogs are often abandoned because they're just old, and a family wants a younger, bouncier puppy. According to the Grey Muzzle Organization, the adoption rate for senior dogs out of shelters is much lower than that of all the other ages combined. Just over 50% of dogs in shelter who are 7 or older find new homes. The Grey Muzzle Organization is one of the only national organizations dedicated specifically to advancing life-saving efforts on behalf of senior dogs. It is not a shelter or rescue group. Rather, it funds programs such as hospice care, senior dog adoption, medical screening, and other special programs to help old dogs at animal welfare organizations across the United States and Canada. This month, the Grey Muzzle will be announcing more than $705,000 in grants to 78 animal welfare groups working to save and improve the lives of senior dogs. That will bring its total in grant funding to more than $3.8 million since the Grey Muzzle's inception in 2008. Our guest today is Lisa Longhofer, the Executive Director of the Grey Muzzle Organization and Making Good Work, a nonprofit that provides grant writing, strategic planning, program development, and other services to mission-driven organizations. Her expertise lies in the human-animal bond, animal welfare, at-risk youth, juvenile justice, child welfare, violence prevention, and education. Have a listen as Lisa shares her journey from child welfare research to advocacy for senior dogs and how she can't believe her own dog, Cameron, is about to turn 14. So Lisa, you're the Executive Director of the Grey Muzzle Organization and Making Good Work, and you do consultancy on your research. How do you find free time and what do you do with it?
There's not a lot of free time. The thing I like to do most in the world is to travel. So I was not able to do very much of that until just recently, given the world circumstances. So I'm excited to be able to be back on the road again.
Tell us about Lisa Longhofer, why she is so dedicated to a life of service in nonprofits, and how her research in child trauma led to a life of understanding the human-animal bond and the Grey Muzzle Organization.
Wow, that's a big question.
Isn't it? You have a half an hour.
Right. Let's see. Where shall I start? So, yes, I started out doing federally contracted research and evaluation on children's exposure to violence. And what that meant really was that I was helping to evaluate large national programs that were focused on children and families that had experienced trauma, particularly violence, whether that was community violence or child abuse and neglect, or having been exposed to domestic violence. And in 2000 and maybe 8 or 9 or 10, I was watching the news here, and I live outside of Washington, D.C., and there was a human interest story about a dog named Jetta who belonged to a gentleman who was in the I believe in the Army, and he was going overseas, and he was taking his dog Jetta. And somehow at Dulles Airport, when Jetta was being loaded into the plane, she escaped from the crate. And this gentleman and his wife were frantically searching Northern Virginia looking for this dog. And I was so heartbroken for them. And they were pleading with people. This was August in DC. They were pleading with people to show up in the 110-degree temperature the next day to help them search for their beloved dog.
And we just talked off camera about the humidity in DC. So I'm sure 110 is really rough.
Yes, to be outside searching for a dog. But I was just so touched by that and their love for the dog, and I just imagined how I would have felt if one of my 3 dogs at the time had been missing, and how much it would mean to me if people came to help me look for one of my dogs. So I thought, well, I have to show up. So I did. I showed up, and that really, it led to several months of looking for Jetta, who sadly was never found. But I then became part of this small group in DC that was known for helping people find their lost dogs. So I was a researcher by day, and in my spare time, I was driving all over DC, hanging posters and talking to people and asking if they'd seen this dog or that dog. And that's when my desire to use my skills to help animal related causes kind of began to take shape. And so a couple of years after that, the consulting company that I was working for lost some of its clients. And so my time was greatly reduced, and I was really at a crossroads, and it was a question of whether or not I would continue doing what I was doing, or if I would make a change and really take the risk of going out on my own and trying to make my, air quotes, crazy animal work that I had been doing, in my spare time, transform it from my avocation to my profession. So I decided that risk was worth taking. And so that was when I began making good work. And so I Googled organizations. I did an internet search looking for groups that I thought were doing interesting work, had worthy missions, and I emailed their directors and said, hi, I'm a researcher and evaluator. I also happen to be an animal lover. I know how to write winning grant proposals, because if you're in the federal government world of consulting and you can't write a winning grant proposal, you're not in that line of business too long.
Indeed.
And I know how to develop programs and do strategic planning. Would you like to collaborate? And oh, by the way, I'll do all of that for free. So needless to say, I had some great opportunities to partner with different organizations, and eventually that became paying work, and here we are.
Wow. There's a certain magic that many humans experience when we talk about the human-animal bond, but a lot of your research into that connection is more about the negative underpinnings and abuse of animals or mistreatment of animals. Is that correct?
Actually, no. Some of it has been, but other work has been more on the positive side. So, for example, I got a grant from Maddie's Fund to do a qualitative study of programs for people who were unhoused and had companion animals. So I actually did interviews with people at homeless shelters, the staff, people who were staying at the shelters, who had animals, people who didn't have animals, in order to inform the development of policies and procedures and protocols to make animal shelters more pet friendly. Oh. So that was really a really interesting project. I also did a study, also with a grant from Maddie's Fund, at Grey Muzzle, looking at our grantees. So, and what some of the emerging issues and trends were that they were seeing related to senior dogs. So that was actually a really great opportunity in that it has informed our grant giving strategy and our prioritization of programs that prevent surrender of senior dogs.
So,
but I have also done some work on the flip side, looking at animal abuse and neglect and what some of the drivers of those behaviors might be.
it's all really fascinating stuff that you do. And it does take me back to my question about your free time. Living a life surrounded by trauma is not easy. What drives you to do it every day?
I think, understanding trauma and understanding the precursors to trauma is important to inform our understanding and our efforts to address it. So I think being able to have the opportunity to do something positive for people or animals that have experienced trauma is very rewarding, and I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to play a role in helping people, even if I'm not helping them directly, helping them indirectly by improving the efforts of organizations that are doing more of that direct service work.
So you've alluded to what Grey Muzzle does already, but can you dive into it a little bit more and talk about your grant programs and how Grey Muzzle helps senior dogs across the United States?
Sure. So Grey Muzzle provides funding and other resources to animal welfare organizations across the country. We last year awarded $705,000 in grants to 78 animal welfare groups. And those groups, they were all doing programs, offering programs with that funding that were focused specifically on helping senior dogs, but they were helping in various ways. So some of them were offering programs to keep senior dogs in their homes if their people were facing financial hardship. They would provide, free or reduced cost medical care. Others offered hospice programs for dogs that had life-limiting illnesses. Others provided dental care, which is a very big deal for senior dogs. It's very expensive and it's a very common need, and it also can cause other health problems systemically, so it's really important to address it. And then we provide funding for general medical care, for preventive services. And then we also give grants for innovative programs. So there's actually a program that we are supporting at Spoke Animal in your neck of the woods, the Hearts and Paws program, where they have they're working with a nursing facility, and the residents take one senior dog at a time, and they provide care until that dog finds his forever family. And that's actually gone so well that we have other grantees that are interested in adopting the program in other parts of the country, which is really exciting. And this year we funded pilots and pets and pilots. Oh, now I'm messing up the name, but they provide transportation service to fly pets from areas of the country where there's such overcrowding in shelters, and there aren't enough adoptive homes to take in those pets, to areas of the country like Spokane, where there are more than not necessarily more than enough, but there are ample opportunities for those pets to get adopted.
Very nice. I was somewhat familiar with Hearts and Paws, but I didn't realize that it was so effective and growing.
Yeah, it's exciting. We love to see programs like that. I particularly love programs like that where we are integrating the human service professionals with the animal welfare professionals, and working to help people and animals simultaneously. I think those are some great programs. And we also provide resources to the general public. So we provide a free monthly webinar on a whole range of topics related to senior dogs, from what to consider if you're adopting a senior dog, to alternative therapies, to medical issues, to end-of-life decision making. And we offer resources on our website, our blog, that addresses similar kinds of topics, so that people are prepared with the information that they need to ensure a good quality of life for their dog as he or she ages.
Yeah. Part of the Grey Muzzle's mission is to ensure that no old dog dies alone and afraid. And just saying that gives me such an emotional reaction, because
I can't say it without crying, to be honest.
My own dog Bella just turned 9, and it's really hard for me to accept that she's considered a senior now. And I just could never imagine the possibility of letting her go or abandoning her. What compels people to do that?
I think a lot of people find themselves in difficult circumstances and feel like they don't have a choice. I think a lot of people aren't aware of what resources do exist in our community. I think that a lot of animal welfare organizations haven't done a good enough job in reaching out to the community and making them aware of the kinds of resources that are available. I think we could do a lot better job of that, so that people had a safety net, so that they felt not ashamed to ask for help when they need it. Because honestly, it is far better for a senior dog to stay in the home with the people that have, loved him ostensibly all his life, rather than undergo the trauma of coming into a really noisy, potentially chaotic shelter and then waiting a long time to be adopted. I mean, that's not a good outcome for anybody. So I think we need to do better at making those resources available to people, making people feel okay asking for help.
There certainly is a thread of people who just don't want to deal with a dog at a senior age, and they just don't want to, and they trade them in for a puppy. But when we talk about people who are in circumstances where they feel they have to let their dog go, and certainly in the economy that we have right now and how that affects people's decisions, I think about 3 years ago when we were all sent home to isolate, and the shelters emptied out because people realized that they wanted the companionship of an animal. And I kind of thought at the time, we're going to be in some big trouble when it's time for us all to go back to work. I hate that I was right. And now the economy is making it even worse. Were you able to see that moment in time, this moment in time coming? And how does the Grey Muzzle try to mitigate that problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all were concerned about what was going to happen as the pandemic unfolded, and what the ramifications of all of that would be. I mean, not only on the more people adopting, but also clinics being closed and dogs not getting spayed and neutered, and people getting a puppy and having to shelter in place and not socializing the puppy. And then, it's not just the senior dogs getting turned in, it's the adolescent dog who didn't get socialized and now, isn't a 3-month-old puppy anymore, is a 1.5-year-old adolescent who's challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think all of those forces have conspired to put us where we are now, which is not in a good place, with a lot of shelters really, really, really overflowing, and people, animal welfare groups desperate to move dogs, to find fosters, etc. So, yeah, I mean, 3 years ago, you couldn't get a puppy to save your life. And now that's a pretty easy thing to do. So as I said, for Grey Muzzle, we have really increased our emphasis on funding prevention efforts. And this year we just had our call for grants. It just closed in March, and we are actually getting ready to make our fiscal year 2024 awards later, in the next couple of weeks. And we, in addition to focusing on prevention, we are also focused on organizations that are doing outreach to the community to reach neighborhoods that have historically been overlooked, neighborhoods that are vet deserts, neighborhoods that don't have, access to pet stores and easy access to pet food, and really trying to be more systematic in supporting that sort of outreach so that people are aware of what sorts of resources do exist to help them with their animal when they're facing eviction or financial issues, not being able to pay for food, not being able to pay for medical care. So that really is a priority for us. We do support some programs that are short-term sheltering. So if somebody is going into the hospital, for example, or say an older person has a senior dog and they have to have a medical procedure, and then they have to go, which is often typical, to a rehab facility for 4 weeks or 6 weeks. We have organizations that provide that sort of temporary shelter where they're taking on care of the animal during the time that the person is incapacitated or not in their home, and then they're giving the animal back to the person when they are able to come home and be able to take care of them. We also have other grantees that provide in-home hands-on assistance. So NM Dog in New Mexico, they actually have a long-term foster program where they place senior dogs with people, typically older people, who would like companionship, but maybe don't have the physical resources or ability to take care of a dog on their own. So they actually have people from the NM Dog volunteer staff go and help the person, take the dog with the person to the vet, or go to the pet store to get pet food. So it provides not only a home for the senior dog who might not get adopted otherwise, but it also provides companionship for the senior person who might not have that companionship of an animal otherwise. And it also provides social support when the volunteers are coming to the home to help the person with the dog. So it's kind of a win-win-win.
Cameron is 14.
Cameron, that freaks me out. Yes, she is 14.
It is so hard to watch them age. Tell us a little bit about Cameron.
Cameron is, she came from South Carolina. We got her through Lucky Dog Animal Rescue, which is an organization that I had volunteered with for quite a while. And she is a hound mix. She looks like a tall, skinny beagle. We call her our caramel chew dog because she looks like a caramel candy, with the white inside. I'm not sure what they're called. Maybe they're called caramel chews. But she has a white patch on her neck, and she's otherwise caramel colored, but she has a big black nose, one black toe nail, and a little bit of black on her tail, which when we first brought her home, when we picked her up from the transport, my husband was diligently trying to bathe her, and he was convinced that it was dirt on her tail. And so he scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed, only to find that, in fact, that was her tail and her fur that had little black specks in it. So since then, she has refused to go into the bathroom.
I don't blame her. Not at all.
Traumatized by her first bath by her dad.
What is the magic in having a senior dog in the house?
I mean, Cameron, we've had all of her life, so we didn't get her as a senior dog. But watching her go through the phases of her life and seeing her get older. But I will say, I mean, actually, she will be 14 in October, so she's not quite 14 yet. But she really, I mean, I'm very thankful, knock on wood, that she hasn't really shown signs of aging or really slowing down at this point, which we're very, very fortunate about. But, I think that having seen a lot of people adopt senior dogs, there's just this sense of comfort and just joy in being able to open your heart and home to an animal that may have, well, I mean, clearly would have been in a difficult situation not having a home, having a home at one point, right? But losing that home for whatever reason. And just, I think that sense of gratitude for being in a safe place again and feeling that love and being nurtured. I just think that is such a great gift to give to a senior dog and a great gift to receive in return, their love and affection.
And there's certainly a lot less hair pulling and house destruction with senior dogs around, isn't there?
That is true. I mean, that is really an important thing. When you get a puppy, you don't really know what sort of personality they're going to have as they grow up. And I think with a senior dog, it's a lot easier to choose a dog that is a good fit for your lifestyle, your personality, what it is that you're looking for in a companion. And I think that's a huge benefit. I think that really makes the transition easier for both the person and the dog. And I think it also can really enhance the bond that you share because you really are, making a match that's right for both of you.
It's almost like a first-time dog owner would be the ideal client adopter for a senior dog.
Right, absolutely.
A good break-in kind of thing.
Right, absolutely.
But so those of us who have experienced loss, we have a deeper understanding of the old trope, there's no guarantee that tomorrow comes. But when someone adopts a senior dog, they have to be prepared for the goodbye to come sooner. Does the Grey Muzzle Organization take steps to educate on that subject? And if so, how?
So we do, and we provide that's actually part of the resources that we provide on our website as well as through the webinars that we hold. So we provide information. Actually, we have an advisory board that has some just terrific folks on it, and one of them is Dr. Mary Gardner, and she's the co-founder of Lap of Love Veterinary Hospice, and she has done a lot of webinars for us on end-of-life decision-making, end-of-life planning. We have another veterinarian, Dr. Julie Busby, who has also done similar webinars, just talking really candidly about the euthanasia process itself, because people don't know, and it's important to be prepared. So we've had webinars on what you need to know when you're making the decision to euthanize your senior dog, and what she has given terrific tips about preparing for that time and what you might do to in leading up to it, and being in that moment, and things to consider, and also afterwards. So I feel like those have been some of our most impactful webinars. I will say that it's such a heavy topic that I know the first one we did, there was just, we leave time at the end for questions, and there was just silence. And I think people were just processing, the information, but also the grief and the feelings of loss and the anticipation of loss that come along with having a candid discussion about death. So I'm really glad that we are able to offer those resources, and I'm really thankful for the work that you're doing to help people through that process, because it certainly is a process. And I think particularly for people going through it for the first time, I think that can be completely overwhelming.
Yeah, my first
so
time.
Thank you for offering that comfort to people and those lasting memories.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to look death in the face. I had the opportunity to go to Global Pet Expo in Orlando in March, and everything was very life related. It's all about enjoying the puppy years and the good years and the throwing toys and the whatnot. And I approached it from a very different point of view, and in looking for products and services that were more related to senior dogs. And certainly there was a wonderful rehab tools company, but we really just don't want to deal with the fact that senior dogs and pets are neglected in our world, and grief is death and grief. We just want to put it in a closet.
I think that's how we treat death and grief kind of across the board.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
I think that sums it
up. I know that wasn't really a question either, but so what's next for Grey Muzzle other than the grantees being announced in the next few weeks?
So we are having our 3rd annual online auction to raise money for senior dogs. That is kicks off on June 7th. And we don't have any government funding. We don't have an endowment. So literally the amount that we give out every year is entirely dependent on our fundraising efforts. So we are always happy to have people support our efforts. We are actually, in terms of longer term priorities, we really would like to do more capacity building for organizations that are interested in improving their work on behalf of senior dogs, just starting work on behalf of senior dogs, expanding their work on behalf of senior dogs. So, we recognize that there is, and this is something that came out very clearly in that Maddie's Fund study that I did, that there are disincentives to animal welfare organizations, big disincentives to them for taking in senior dogs because of the unknown cost involved. And so, if given the choice of accepting, a 2-year-old dog or a 12-year-old dog, the odds are they're probably going to lean towards accepting the 2-year-old dog, because not only is it likely that dog will have fewer health issues that they need to pay for, but it's also likely that dog will get adopted more quickly. So I would like for us to do more around building the capacity of organizations to help more senior dogs. And that I think that could involve something more than just giving grants, providing more hands-on technical assistance, helping people develop a fundraising strategy of their own, or develop partnerships with groups in other parts of the country that might be able to transport senior dogs to them, or developing partnerships with municipal shelters that, are open admission and have to take every animal that comes to them. Developing partnerships with perhaps rescues or limited admission shelters where they have more leeway in terms of the decision making around which animals they accept, so that we're building a community support system such that senior dogs do have that safety net and are being saved at a rate comparable to younger dogs.
Awesome. What is one last thing you can leave us with regarding senior dogs and the Grey Muzzle?
I would just encourage everyone who is thinking about adopting a dog to consider an older dog. And I would also say that, the age of the dog, senior, if we think typically of senior dogs starting at the age of 7, mm-hmm. and now the life expectancy of dogs is, 14, 15, 16 years old, 17 years old, even for smaller dogs. So, a dog who's 7 or 8 or even 9, could have as many years ahead as behind. So, I would just encourage everybody who's thinking about adopting a dog to consider a senior dog, whether it's a 7-year-old dog or a 12-year-old dog or a 15-year-old dog. I really can say very confidently that you will not regret the decision, that the love that dog brings into your life and the love that you're able to give him or her will be repaid 1,000,000 times over.
And don't get me started on that old trope about, big dogs don't live as long. Because I have a big dog and her lifespan expectancy is 11 to 14. So I'm good.
There you go. All right. Yeah. Really, veterinary care and the advances that we've made, yeah, I think there was a dog the other day that was celebrating his 20th birthday. So
yeah. Or the oldest dog in the world is 31, and I think she's at least a medium-sized dog. So she's not a tiny little Chihuahua or anything.
Not that there's anything wrong with the Chihuahuas.
Not that there's anything wrong with the Chihuahua. Not my choice. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lisa.
Sure, thank you.
The Grey Muzzle's full mission statement is, we envision a world where every senior dog thrives and no old dog dies alone and afraid. No old dog dies alone and afraid. Dear listeners, I know a statement like that is a gut punch for you too. As Lisa and I chatted, we have both entered the senior stages of our dogs' lives. And as I prepare this outro, Bella lies at my feet, softly snoring the afternoon away. I couldn't possibly imagine leaving her now, and I know you feel the same way about your pets. There are others out there, though, who don't, and it's up to us to help ensure Lisa and the Grey Muzzle move their mission forward. They're holding their 3rd annual Senior Dogs Rock online auction from June 7th to 11th. You can bid on one of the awesome prizes available, or help fund a need by bidding on such items as beds for senior dogs, subsidized vet care to prevent surrender, the opportunity to name one of the Grey Muzzle's grants, and more. The link to the auction website is in the show notes. You can also make a straight-up donation on the Grey Muzzle's website to help senior dogs fetch life-saving grants. Just $30 helps a senior dog find a new home via a Senior for Senior adoption program. $50 gives a senior dog waiting in a shelter the comfort of an orthopedic bed. Next week, I sit down with Chris Miller of MIL Pet Photography in Berkshire, United Kingdom. Chris is a certified pet loss grief specialist with One Last Network. He creates stunning and emotive natural light dog photos for his clients, and he is immensely proud to be able to support his clients as they work through the anticipatory grief of facing the future without their best friend. Until then. I'm Angela Schneider, owner of Big White Dog Photography in Spokane, Washington, and your host at One Last Network, signing off to go get some Bella snuggles. Listen to One Last Network on whichever podcast platform you prefer. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, and Amazon Music. Don't forget to hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you have a friend who might be interested in our content, make sure you share us with them. Thanks for listening.